This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. We're fortunate tonight to have as our guest Chief Justice candidate Charlie Graddick. A lot of you folks know Charlie from his days in politics. He's been around politics a long time, but unlike a lot of us, Charlie hadn't aged much. You look the same as you did 25 years ago, Charlie.
So I looked
Good to have you on the show.
I looked in my 60s when I was in the 40s. Huh?
Hair's not graying in it. And your hair, you had that same piece of hair coming down like that when you were in politics 25, 30 years ago. Charlie, you were born and raised in Mobile.
Right.
Now judge down there, circuit judge. Tell folks, I know people have heard of Charlie Graddick for years, but I want to tell them kind of, getting back to your roots in Mobile. You were born and raised in Mobile.
Born and raised in Mobile, educated in the school system in Mobile.
Where'd you go to UMS?
I went to UMS, went to the University of Alabama.
Undergraduate and law school?
Undergraduate. I went to Cumberland in law school.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Tried to play football for a few days for Coach Bryant, and I looked like I'd been in a train wreck.
Charlie, somebody said you were a pretty good quarterback.
Well, they didn't think so at the University of Alabama.
Well, you had to be pretty doggone good to play with Bryant, I had the same experience with Bryant. He had some folks walking on, and he asked me if I was any good. I said, Coach, I'm really not. If I were, you'd assign me.
That's right. That's right. I walked on.
They could sign 45 people back then.
And the freshmen didn't play. They got to be the scout team.
But you'd played quarterback in high school.
I did. I played for Coach Doug Barfield in high school, who was a coach.
He was at UMS, and then he went to Andalusia.
Went to Andalusia, then went to Clemson, and then came to Auburn and became Auburn's head football coach, and then thought he was going to be the AD at Troy for a little while, and he chose to go back to Mobile, and he was the AD down there at UMS rather than...
He came in full cycle.
Yeah.
So he coached you at UMS.
He did.
And then went to Andalusia. He went from Andalusia to Auburn, didn't he?
I think
Maybe
he
Clemson.
went to Hootie Ingram in
Clemson, yeah.
What a gentleman he was.
Is he still at UMS?
No. As a matter of fact, he came up here. I think he was head of the Alabama Athletic Association for a little while. And now he's got grandchildren, and he and his wife, Betty, are full-time grandparents. And
Charlie, so you went to undergraduate school in Alabama. What year did you get there?
Got there in '63 and left in '67.
Bryant had won a national championship in '61 and won one again in '64.
Yeah, and '65, and they didn't give it to us in '66.
That's
they
right.
should have. We had Joe Namath and Steve Sloan as quarterbacks, and Kenny Stabler was a year behind me. So
he come from Foley over there by you.
That's right.
Did you play against him in high school?
I did. It's the only game we lost 2 years in a row.
When you were at UMS, y'all played Foley.
We went undefeated except for Foley, and they beat us like yard dogs.
Charlie, did he have that nickname Snake when he was in high school?
He did.
Because he was like a snake. He was so skinny.
He was skinny, and I don't think anybody knew who he was until he played us. We made a star out of him, I think. But he was one heck of an athlete.
He would run that option. He was so skinny. He looked like a snake. He was left-handed, and
Steve, he not only was a great football player, he could have played Major League Baseball. He was a terrific left-handed pitcher.
I didn't know that.
And he and I actually tried out at one of the down in Florida with one of the Major League Baseball teams. He was a junior and I was a senior. We went down there and they were all over him. They really liked.
Left-handed pitchers are hard to get hit,
And I'm gonna tell you, he was just talented. He had talent in his little finger, and.
Namath did too.
Yeah, he did. Those guys were very athletic.
Charlie, talking about that, when I was out of San Francisco a few years ago and was eating some oysters at a place, and those folks out there in Oakland still love Snake Stabler. They talk about that era. Well, you're from Alabama. Do you know Kenny Stabler?
Right.
That was they got pictures of him on the wall. He was a legend. Oakland folks love him.
I still see Kenny all along from time to time. Kenny has aged quite a bit, but still the same, still sounds just like Kenny, you know, with that high-pitched voice. And my guess is he could still flat-foot throw a football 50 yards. So.
Charlie, did you meet your wife Corinne in Alabama?
No, I met her in Mobile. She was a junior in high school, and I'll tell you where I met her.
Y'all been married 45 years.
45 years, and
y'all met in high school.
Yeah, I was coaching a powder puff football team, two girls football team. You know, what do you call it? Touch football, and I met her when I was coaching and began to date her.
When y'all were in high school?
And we dated for 4 years before we got married. So we've been together almost half a century.
Did she come to Alabama when follow you up to Alabama?
She came up there for a little while, and then we married my senior year in college.
So y'all married in law school too?
Married in law school. Came back here. I clerked for the Supreme Court my first year out of law school.
Out of Cumberland?
Out of Cumberland.
Who did you clerk for?
Justice Daniel T. McCall.
Oh, yeah. He'd been there a long time.
Yeah.
Well, he was on the board of the Alabama Trustees, wasn't he?
He was.
He's from Mobile.
He is.
That's right.
And,
yeah.
And he's really one of the ones that somewhat talked me into really being interested in going to law school.
You didn't know you were going to do it when you
I wasn't sure what I was going to do back then. Actually, I had majored in business. I thought I was going to work maybe for one of the Alabama dry docks down there in the marketing area. And he talked me into going to law school, and it was too late for me to apply or to get in Alabama. I had taken the entrance exam, and they were full, and we drove over to Cumberland Law School and walked in, and they took me just like that. And I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed the law school there. It probably got me out of that Alabama environment, and I really began to be a student, and I felt like I did pretty well in law school. And
did you go back to Mobile? You clerked with Judge McCall after law school.
Right, and then I was hired by a fellow who became federal judge down there. He was DA at the time, Randy Butler. He hired me as an assistant DA.
Down in Mobile?
Down in Mobile. I was DA for 3 or 4 years, 3 years, and I was getting ready to go out in the private practice. He came in and said, I want you to run for DA.
He wasn't going to run.
He said, I've had one term and I really don't want any more.
Did other folks know he wasn't going to run? He just told you right early.
Right, he did. And I didn't know what running meant.
How old were you at that time? You were young.
I was 27 years old. I couldn't imagine. I look back on it today and think, who would vote for a 28-year-old district attorney? But I got elected.
At 28?
At 28.
I didn't know that.
I was the youngest DA in the state, obviously, and I was the only Republican in the state of Alabama as a DA.
So you ran your first time as a Republican?
That's right.
Like Fobb did.
I guess.
Fobb had run been a Republican.
That's right.
That's right.
And I began to see all the problems that the local prosecutors were having with the lenient laws and technicalities that were in place that were turning criminals loose, and we were, the police were doing their job, we were doing our job, but it seemed like they weren't staying in jail. Laws were poorly written, and I decided I wanted to run for Attorney General.
What year were you elected a DA? 78?
74.
74, and then 4 years later you ran for Attorney General.
AG, that's right. And I went to the guy down there who was considered Mr. Republican, Arthur Outlaw, and Arthur said, well, if you're going to run statewide, you need to run as a Democrat.
He was honest with you about it.
Absolutely. He said if we called a Republican convention, we could all meet in a classroom. Anyhow, it didn't matter to me back then. I wanted to be a prosecutor, I wanted to be Attorney General, and politics shouldn't be involved in either one of those. And lo and behold, I ran in a 9-man race, and I ran against. I was in the runoff with
state senators in there,
with
wasn't
Joe Fine.
That's right. A bunch of state senators were in that race.
Right, Dudley Perry.
Who else? Joe Fine was in that race. Dudley Perry.
Julian McPhillips was in that race.
Julian was in that race. That's right.
Doug Johnstone, who ended up on the Supreme
From
Court.
Mobile too. She had somebody from Mobile in the race against you.
And there were a number of them. Hawkeye Marr from over in Selma.
Oh yeah.
A great guy.
That was a good. I remember that race now.
Yeah.
Sure do.
I won the runoff against Joe,
And Fobb came from nowhere and beat the 3Bs.
3Bs.
Baxley, Beasley, and Brewer running for governor, and nobody thought he might have a chance against those three.
Exactly.
And Fobb spent so much money. And did you see that come when you were out there campaigning? Could you see people picking up on Fobb?
No, I didn't.
You didn't see it coming then?
No, as a matter of fact,
I was
having a hard time seeing people pick up on me. But
with 8 people in the race.
I slammed a jailhouse door shut.
I remember that ad. Yeah.
And I went from 9th to about 2nd in 2 weeks.
Who was in runoff with you? Fine.
Joe Fine. And he and I today are good friends. Really and truly, I won that race really not thinking that I was really going to have a chance, to tell you the truth.
Because you could still be DA.
Right.
You had 2 more years after your DA term.
Exactly. And I, it was fun. I got to be Attorney General. I didn't have opposition my second run for Attorney General, which was unheard of.
In 82.
Yeah. And had a great office, had a bunch of good people in that office who really did an outstanding job, and I took credit for a lot of it. So
nobody ran against you in 82 for Attorney General?
No. 8
years as Attorney General. So what age were you when you turned General? You were 32?
32.
32 years old, Attorney General. And
Very
then
young.
ran for election at age 36, and then
I ran for governor
at age 40. When you were 40 in 86 then.
That's right. And
biggest travesty in state politics. That race was.
I was running against Fobb, and I was running against George McMillan, and I was running against Bill Baxley, and he was the odds-on favorite to win.
I'd forgotten that McMillan had been lieutenant governor.
That's right.
And he was running in 86, and then.
And Fobb had been governor. So.
I'd forgotten Fobb was in that race.
Yeah.
In 86.
And I got in a runoff with Baxley, and
beat him in the runoff.
I got more votes than he got, and the hierarchy of the Democratic Party decided I was too conservative for them.
I know it.
And they told me I wasn't going to be governor, and I didn't believe them. I didn't.
You couldn't imagine somebody could do that, could you?
I just didn't think that they could disenfranchise 500,000 people. And I told them, I said, this is y'all are gonna.
Did you hear it coming? Did you hear that they came here and told you they were going to do it?
Well, I had been pretty much told that I was not their fair-haired boy.
Well, everybody knew that because you were the conservative candidate. Baxley was a true liberal by Alabama standards.
That's right. And he was, he was supported by every traditional Democratic group, AEA and ADC and New South and unions, and I mean, there was a lot of traditional Democrats, and the Alabama trial lawyers supported him. And everybody kept saying, well, who's going to vote for you if he's got all those people? Well, there were more of us than there were of them, apparently. And my platform was about education and tort reform, and people supported me. And I kept saying crime wasn't an issue in this campaign because we'd already done so much with regards to crime. And anyhow, probably the biggest blessing I ever had in my life was when that Democratic Party stripped me of the nomination, because I was able to be a father. I was able to be a husband. I got out and began to make a living.
Politics is a very demanding sport.
Oh gosh, and if I'd have been able to serve, which I would have loved to have served as governor, I think we would have made a big difference in Alabama at that time. But I got all my children educated, and they all went to college, and And
have 3 children.
3 children,
2 grandchildren.
two boys and a girl, and I got 3 grandchildren, 2 boys and a girl.
Are any of them in Mobile with you?
3 both my daughter and one of my sons are in Mobile. My son lives right across the street from me with the 3 grandchildren, which is probably the most joy I think I've had and fun that I've had in my life. I mean, I used to hear my parents tell me what a great joy it was to be around my children, and I thought they're not seeing the same thing I am.
Everybody says that.
But having grandchildren is about as good as it gets.
Charlie, back to that 86 race, that really was the biggest travesty. I mean, they just figured they were just going, and the people of Alabama show taught them, didn't they? And they said, hey, why are you out being campaigning? Have anybody? I bet you've had a lot of people come and say, "I've been waiting 25 years to right that wrong."
But believe it or not, Steve, you're exactly right.
I bet you hear that all the time. I bet you hear from one end of the state to the other. I've been waiting 25 years to right that wrong.
It's amazing. They'll walk up to me and they'll say, "I voted for you in 1986, and I haven't voted for a Democrat ever since, and I'm going to get a chance to restore you back to where you ought to be. It was stolen from you."
Yeah.
And, you know,
they remember it, don't they?
Yes, they did.
It was 25 years ago.
It was an incredible event in people's lives back then.
You know, that was an audacious act for them to just go in the back room and say, well, we're just going to make Baxter the nominee after Graddick got the most votes. And I thought, and they told them in November. I mean, an unknown former judge in Coleman County. And since then, you really helped build the Republican Party in Alabama.
I feel like I had something to do with having a 2-party
More than Arthur Outlaw ever did. Arthur spent the years in the vineyards.
Well, that's right.
You know.
Yeah. You know what, Steve? What was really disturbing to me is when we were explaining to them that this shouldn't happen. They said, you know, the people of Alabama have short memories, and
they figured that.
And this is an arrogant thing. They said, you know, they're really kind of stupid.
They said that to you?
Yes. And I said, oh man, y'all are getting ready to have the biggest wake up in your life.
The Democrat Party died that year.
It died, and a 2-party system came about, and Guy Hunt swept to victory. And people were mad.
They sure were. They went in there. They said, "I don't, you know, it wouldn't matter if Mickey Mouse was the Republican."
Absolutely not.
They said, "We're gonna vote for somebody." They can't treat us like that. And so you went on back home to Mobile, practiced law, and then.
Actually, I lived here for some time. Lived in Montgomery for some time.
Did y'all live in Montgomery? You and Corinne? Y'all were here for 10 years.
We were here for 20.
So you were here practicing law?
Yeah, I practiced law for 10 years after I left
here
office.
In Montgomery.
And my parents and her parents had got to a stage that they really needed us down there, and so we moved back to Mobile.
What year did y'all move back home?
I think it was about 97, 98.
Then you soon after ran for judgeship, didn't you?
No, well, in 2003. I had the president of the bar came and asked me to do it, and I wasn't sure.
For the 04 election?
Yes.
Okay.
And I really wasn't sure I could be a judge, because I'd always been an advocate, and I wanted to make sure I could sit in that chair and not take sides and call balls and strikes and give people a level playing field. And I found that the first day I sat down in that chair, I could do it. And
did you have an opponent in 04?
I did, but it wasn't much. I won't say it wasn't much of an opponent. He didn't do much of anything.
Well, Charlie, are most of the circuit judges in Mobile Republican?
Yes.
So y'all run countywide, don't
there's still 2 Democrats.
Y'all run countywide?
Yes. And
how many circuit judges are there?
11.
Do y'all divide up civil, criminal, domestic? Y'all do everything?
We do. The 8 trial judges handle criminal and civil.
Both?
Both. We do not. We have 2 dedicated circuit judges to do domestic, and we've got 1 circuit judge that does all juvenile.
Okay.
So all of ours is felony criminal cases, appeals from district court and things of that nature, and all civil matters.
How does Jefferson and Montgomery do theirs? Do you know?
Yeah, Jefferson has dedicated criminal
Like yours?
circuits.
Oh, they all the way. They don't diverse,
Right. They have one judge. I mean, they have a group of judges that do nothing but civil, and a group that does nothing but criminal. I like what we do.
That's better. Y'all get.
You know, every 2 weeks we swap back. We go 2 weeks on civil, and then 2
But
weeks.
you'll
on
ever seen
criminal.
domestic stuff though?
No, thank goodness. I never liked that.
Yeah, that's. But they in Jefferson, I knew they kind of specialized, but in Mobile they don't.
Right.
So you were on the bench in '04, and did you have an opponent in 2010? Anything?
No, I've run unopposed since then. And I've been presiding judge, I guess, 7 years.
So you're presiding judge?
Yes, I've been.
Joe, that's another thing that people don't realize is, in viewers, I don't know if I made it clear that Charlie is running for Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It's the only really contested race we've got on the ballot on March 13th. And, of course, all the races in the Republican primary, and we may be a factor in the doggone presidential
We
thing.
could, absolutely.
You know, it could play. Well, I think there'll be some candidates. There'll be some candidates anyway. I don't think the field will have wintered by then. I mean, I don't know.
I don't either. I know that what I'm hearing is that that at least two of them are going to be in the race. So we should have a spirited contest.
We'll have a spirited presidential primary. And viewers, let me remind you again that our legislature last year, in a cost-saving measure, combined the primaries. We used to have our general primary in June, and the presidential we fluctuate and move it around in order to try to get some exposure. But this year, in a cost-saving measure, when you go to the polls on March 13th, you will vote for our state races in the Republican primary and Democratic primary, and then also presidential preference primary. And probably the only contested race we've got, well, we have 5 Supreme Court races up for election. The Chief Justice race, which Judge Graddick's running for, and then 4 other races. 3 of the races are not contested, only 2 of them. Judge Tommy Bryan and Judge Deborah Davis are vying for the seat that Judge Woodall is leaving. And then Judge Graddick is running for the seat that Sue Bell Cobb left in midterm last year.
And we got the public service president. Of the public
Twinkle
service.
Cavanaugh has some opponents in that race. So it'll be interesting. Those are the only really contested races we have. And actually, viewers, that's your only chance to vote for this race because there's nobody running as a Democrat.
Well, I take that back. Somebody got in right at the last moment.
In y'all's race?
Yeah, a man named Harry.
Oh, he ran in y'all's race. I knew he was the only person ran that qualified.
He's running as a Democrat. So
he runs every time.
Yeah, he does.
I did not know that he got picked. That was the race he picked. So y'all have an opponent.
We're going to have a general election opponent, which is fine. That's okay.
But that's interesting. I didn't know which one he dropped into. He dropped into y'all's race.
He sure did, unfortunately.
Only one person qualifies as a Democrat for judgeship. That shows you how times have changed, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But Judge Graddick will be running for the Chief Justice on March 13th. But the thing I was getting around to saying is that by virtue of, and I'm not sure if viewers are aware, of our 9 seats on the Supreme Court, 5 are up for election this year. So majority of the Supreme Court, and Chief Justice being one of them. But one of the things the Chief Justice does, it's different than the other 9. He administers the court. He's an administrative officer, so he's got to deal with these budget crises. I mean, and actually, Charlie, I'm not sure that the courts are not in a worse shape in the new fiscal year budget where you'll take office. So you'll take office in January of 2013, and you'll be dealing with, in my opinion, and I've had legislators on here, I have Governor Bentley on here, it may be the worst general fund budget this state has ever seen. I'm talking about the Depression.
I know.
And you're going to take over as Chief Justice in January of 13, and there's not a lot you can cut in the court system. How do you do that?
You know, when I came up here as Attorney General, FOB came in, declared proration, froze hiring, froze raises, parked all the cars. I mean, did everything because we were in a financial crisis back then. Nothing like we're in it now. And when I got there, Lieutenant Governor Beasley had pretty much decimated my Bill Baxley, who was my predecessor.
Right, his budget.
Had taken his budget. So I got there in midstream of the fiscal year, and we didn't have any money. Legislature did give me a supplemental appropriation to just barely eke through. But what I did was I closed down satellite offices that we just didn't need. I streamlined the office and unfortunately had to lay some people off and let people go. We parked all the cars. We did all the fiscally responsible things you could think of, and we got through that year. And it was still tough times for about 2 or 3 years after that. I mean, tough. But we even turned back money every year to the state general fund. Now, let me tell you, I'd like to say that I'm really a smart guy and I can take credit for all that, but the fact of the matter is, if I was smart because I hired some very good people in that office, and they developed the budget and the plans, and we followed it, and we were able to live within our means and not cut services. I can do that with this group now. We have, when AOC, Administrative Office of Courts, when it was created as a support vehicle for the people in the trenches, the local court systems. I'm afraid that it's gotten upside down. I think the court system throughout Alabama is starting to have to support AOC. We can do some cost cutting there. We can trim some of the excess, and we're going to be able to live within our means. We can't afford, frankly, to lose anybody else in our clerk's offices around Alabama. That's the heart and soul of our court system.
That's where Judge Sue Bill Cobb was trying to cut, is out in the clerk's office.
Absolutely, and she cut back on jury trials. We can't do that. We got to have swift jury trials, because if you don't, all you do is you delay the jury trials. The criminals stay in jail. It costs the county. I mean, it's a huge. In addition to the fact that we're not putting criminals in jail like we ought to be, and giving them sure punishment. So I'm convinced I can do that, and I'll have 6 years to do it, and I know that I can do it before 6 years. If I can't, I don't need to be there anyhow.
Well, it's an important job, not just from a judicial post, but as I mentioned, it's also the administrative office. I mean, you minister the courts.
80%, no, maybe, some people say 70, some people say 80% of the Chief Justice's responsibilities on a daily basis is administrative.
You're overseeing the entire court system.
That's right.
People don't realize that, and so it's an administrative job as well as judicial. It's a tough job. I mean, that's why some of these folks retire.
Well,
I mean, they've got a pretty heavy caseload up there.
Well, the thing about it is, I've had a tremendous amount of experience, and I know that I don't need on-the-job training.
It's not a cushy job. It's a hard-working job.
Right.
I mean,
well, I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Well, we appreciate you taking time to be with us. Our time is up. It goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Our 30-minute show is expired, but we want to thank you viewers for being with us tonight and watching Alabama Politics. Again, our guest has been former Attorney General, currently Circuit Judge in Mobile. Charlie Graddick was Attorney General for 8 years and was DA in Mobile before that. And now he's back home, practiced law in Montgomery for about 15 years. Now he's back home being a Circuit Judge for 10 years. And he's a candidate for Chief Justice of Alabama Supreme Court on March 13th. We thank Charlie for being with us tonight. We thank you viewers for watching and hope you'll tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you very much. Goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.